If you've been following my Cowork guides, you already know the setup. Local files, a CLAUDE.md with your instructions, skills that tell Claude exactly how to do the work for you. And it works, and I use it every day. And it's one of the most powerful ways to work with AI right now. And Anthropic just made it even better. Projects are now built directly into Cowork desktop app. Everything you've already set up, your persistent context, your instructions, your dedicated workspace now has a proper home inside the app itself. Cleaner setup, and most importantly, memory that persists between sessions and schedule tasks that run without you touching anything. This is the upgrade I've been waiting for since Cowork launched, and today in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up projects within Cowork. My best tips are actually running these every single day, and things that we still want to avoid and workarounds to make this work even better in the current moment. So if you stay to the end, you're going to have a supercharged Cowork setup with projects. Are you ready to go? Let's build. Welcome in. So if you've already been following my guides, you already have local projects set up, all right? Now that is 80% of what we're doing today. However, the other 20%, that's where projects comes in and makes it really, really special, all right? Now, specifically, the thing that really crushes right now is shared memory between your threads within that project. So before, we would go into Cowork and we would spin up a new task, and maybe we would have a new task here for find newsletters, right? And so maybe that was hitting my content creation project. But then I had another conversation about writing an X post. And again, hitting the content creation project. But before projects, those Cowork never noticed that those two were part of the same project and never pulled in that shared memory of the two. But now with projects, it does. And there's a lot of shared context there, a lot of like improvement, workshopping that you want Cowork to have for that context. And that's why projects is so special right now. So within projects, we can go in here in the Cowork app. Right now, you see I'm using the desktop app and I'm on the latest update. If you don't have access to projects in Cowork, that's because your app needs to be updated. And again, this is just available on the desktop app. So within projects, we can go to create a new project and we have options here, all right? We can start from scratch. We can import a project. So this is like a project where there already had chats that we just want to convert into a project, or use an existing folder, all right? Now, we've done a lot of the folder stuff, so let me just pull up one and show you an example of what I mean by folder. So within projects here, I have a ton of different things that I've already created. So this is on my hard drive. This is located on my device. These are my local projects. So I have tips for Claude Code. I have my CC workshop that I'm doing, my Codex, my GTM toolkit, all this kind of stuff. These are projects. And I can go and use any of these to create a new project out of. So I can go in there, I can go back to my projects here, and I can pick any one of these, and I'll say maybe my CC workshop. So this is something that I'm doing right now for Anthropic, helping them do an official Claude Code workshop in New York City through my company 10X. So I can create a project around this, bring in all the documentations around the requirements, the slides, everything that we're doing to do it, and have this shared context. So each new thread keeps that shared context and builds on it, right? So in this case, I already picked that folder and I could do Anthropic workshop. I can give it very specific project instructions here. And then I can continue to add files to this. Now, if I don't want to add any files, what I can do is I can go back to other threads here. I can right click and I can choose to move these previous conversations into this project. That allows me to start stacking context within this project. And context is a very important thing. Context is essentially the shared memories that your LLM, Anthropic, will use when trying to answer your questions. So if you already have a conversation with Anthropic, Claude, about, hey, this is my preference about X, but if it doesn't actually have that shared context, if it doesn't bring that with you, you kind of have to have that conversation again. But with projects in Cowork, you won't have to have that conversation again, because those projects and those conversations will be carried with the new tasks that you assign in Cowork. And it's not just chats. It's also your files here and in the folder structure. So I see on the computer here, we have the folder structure here. But if I go over to my different project, I can see that my folder structure is very different. For content creation, this is all about my LinkedIn post, my newsletter, my podcast, my X. And so it's a high-level project for content creation. You can go as meta as you want with this. You can go as big as you want with this. You can go full workspace with this. But what I recommend is that each project is treated like a project, because when you add a lot of folders and files and threads and conversations, it means that there's more data being sent to Cowork. And when there's more data being sent to Cowork, some of that data might be good and some of that data might be bad. And the goal for you as a builder is to only send the good data, the relevant data, the data that we want Claude to use when making a decision for us. If we send it all this other data, it gets lost, it gets messy. Claude doesn't know if it's good or bad data in that sense. And so what I'm trying to say here is by having very specific projects set up, that allows you to context engineer is a proper term for it, but build up the context that you're sending with these chats to make sure that we're only sending Claude the information that we want it to. Not only that, but it will also save you tokens by being more efficient with your project structure here. By having very specific niche projects, you're only sending the data that you need for that project and nothing else. And because it's less data, it's going to take less tokens, and you'll be able to get a quicker response that takes less tokens. And unfortunately, right now, because Claude is so popular, the limits have been decreased a little bit. So we have to be a little bit more economical about how hard we're slamming this at the moment because everyone's using it. And so token conservation and proper context management are really two big important skills that will allow you to get supercharged performance out of Cowork. But it starts with a clear plan of action for creating a project. So you already see how I have created a project here. And you see how I have an existing project that I have here within a lot of stuff, okay? Now, within each of these, I could go in and set certain things. So if I wanted a scheduled task, I can go in here and create a scheduled task, and this could run manually every hour, daily, weekends, whatever. And maybe the scheduled task is going through this folder, or it's doing research on the internet, or it's doing something like that and helping me prepare. The cool thing about doing scheduled tasks within Cowork projects is it's using all of the shared memories here to make sure that the tasks are using that built-in context to deliver a better result for you. You could otherwise just do a scheduled task here, but it's not going to have that shared context. It's not going to have those shared memories. And it's just going to be much more shallow, right? By doing a scheduled task within a project, it's going to feel like a trained team member is actually doing that project rather than this, which is just like a scheduled job, just doing it to do it. You can give it good instructions. It's probably going to get 80 to 90% there. But if you want best case scenario, scheduled jobs in here. Now, instructions. These instructions are very important. These instructions are sent with every single prompt that you send within this project. So it's good to keep it high level. It's good to keep it with your do's and your don'ts. It's good to show successful examples, but you don't want to like really crowd up this instruction because it's going to bloat some stuff and it's going to make some confusing points in there. So what I'd say is work with Claude to build the instructions for you. And I would go in there and something along the lines of, we are in my content creation space. I need you to build my global instructions for this project within Claude Cowork to help me very efficiently navigate this folder and to, deliver on my goals, which are writing better content, getting better results, helping people learn how to do more with AI as non-developers. So feel free to ask me any questions. And then the output should be really good system instructions that I can attach to this project within Claude Cowork for content creation. So I'd add it in there and I would just start working with this to create these system instructions within this folder. And that's kind of how I would approach it, right? Again, keep it small, keep it concise, but be specific with this because it's very important. If I ever want to go back at any time, I can go back to the top level there. This is also a really cool thing. Say I'm working on multiple agents within this project. Well, look at this. I have one agent working for me right now. I can kick off another agent for this project. And then I can come back to this top level and I can see all of my agents for that project working for me at the same time. It just makes it cleaner to see like who is working, because if you're like me, I have agents working even right now in the background on many different projects. And sometimes all of this, it's like, bro, what project is this even on anymore? If I can categorize it now in my projects like I do, then it makes it so much easier. I don't have that many projects here because this is my second computer that I use for content. My main computer is the one that's really loaded with projects, but it really helps me focus on the agents that are running and which group they belong to. And then look at this, come back in the HQ here. Look at this needs our instructions, and then we can easily tap back into this agent and proceed. So as you can see, projects in Cowork, it's already a big update. It's not amazing yet, but like they are laying the foundation for non-technical people to have superpowers in like the day-to-day life, right? So what I want to do next is start building up a project for the first time with the real project files that we can work on so you can see the full structure of how we build this project. Then I want to give you my best tips. And then I want to talk about some of the areas that is still lacking, some workarounds, and some things that I hope Anthropic launches in the future to like 100x this. All right, let's get started with building our first project. All right, when we want to get started with our first project, first thing we'll do is we'll open up our Finder window here, and we'll go into whatever folder on our desktop that we want to actually create that project. For me, it's been JJ Projects, and within projects is all this. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new folder, and this is going to be called my podcast, okay? I have a popular podcast called This Week in AI that I am working on bringing back for a season 3, and I'm starting to do all my preparation and planning for it. So that's where this podcast is going to live. Right now, I'm going to say podcast. I'm going to say This Week in AI, but we need to do a couple of things for this. So I'm going to go into this folder, and the first one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder, and this is going to be previous episodes, all right? This is the folder where I'm going to go in and add all my previous episodes, so it has that context. Then I want to add another folder showing successful examples. I want to reference some podcasts that I think are really good, and I put them in this folder here. Once I have that, I think that's good enough for now. What I'm going to do is go and open up Cowork here, come back here, I'm going to go projects, and I'm going to say use an existing folder, and I'm going to find my podcast folder that we just started, podcast right there. All right, excellent. So this is going to be for a podcast that I run called This Week in AI. It's going to help me set it up, plan the podcast, write copy for the podcast, strategize it, create thumbnails, and pretty much be the podcast headquarters. We'll use that for now. And then I'll create this. And then right away, I can see that I have all this on board here, okay? So what I want to do is I want to go over to Chrome, and I want to start feeding it some of my podcasts that I have previously. All right, so this is my current channel, 10x Builder. You were probably watching this video. And then I want to go back here and go This Week in AI podcast and pull up the podcast that I have been running for like the last year and a half. Let's see, where are we? Oh, come on. I'm all the way down there. Here we go. JJ here. And so I'm going to go over here and I'm pull that up. I'm going to say, all right. So first thing that I would like you to do is look at this podcast feed and start saving some information about the podcast and start using it to index what this podcast is and getting more context about it. This can be done at the system level. And then afterwards, I'm going to ask you to go into some recent podcast episodes and save them within our previous episodes as MD files. So that way you can start building up context of our previous episodes. All right, I'm going to put it in there. And then I'm just going to say, just to clarify, please use Claude with Chrome to do the research on YouTube for this. All right, so what Claude with Chrome is, it's a ability for Cowork to be able to use your browser to be able to go to that YouTube page and start looking around, grabbing context, and start filling this up. Again, this is a brand new project, and so it's really important for us to get Claude the information it needs to help us start evaluating things. I think I want to do a name rebrand. I want to start figuring out some of the motion graphics. I want to work on the strategy of it, the format of it. But I needed to know what I've done previously, so it's already caught up to speed and get up to date there. I also like to think of projects as like maybe like employees. Like if you're working with a new project and you're onboarding an employee to that project, what does that employee need to know to get up to speed with that project? That's what we're doing now in Claude Cowork, is we're taking the time that we need to get up to speed so Claude can actually be helpful. Because if we were just starting to ask it questions based on what we have given it so far, it's going to be like a chatbot. It's going to be very generic. It's going to be, might as well be in this chat experience here. So we don't want that. We're building a very strong Cowork experience here. And so it is happening here. And it's going to go off and do this for us. Now I can come back here and I can see that's running and I want to do something else. So I am launching or have a podcast in the AI space. Can you go do some research on the internet and look at our competitors and help me put together a competitive landscape of the market and how I should continue to position myself in the future for my podcast, This Week in AI. So I'm going to start running that agent too. Okay. And again, we have multiple agents running for us here. So we could start to build this up, and we're starting to be able to have multiple agents running, shared context, shared information here. That's really awesome. Next thing that I could do here is I can go create a scheduled report, okay? And this scheduled report would be weekly research intel. And so at the start of every This Week in AI episode, I do like a 5 to 10 minute like news cap of like what's going on in the AI world, of like important news that you should know about. And this is going to be the weekly research task that helps me prepare for that opening segment. All right. So weekly AI news. So each week for my podcast, This Week in AI, we have an opening segment that shows the latest pop culture AI news. Like, we don't want to go too technical into the weeds here, but we want to keep it so people that are interested in AI, non-developers, or just general builders that want to do more with AI can be updated on recent models, recent updates, recent tools, things that allow them to just do more with AI. We want to get in the news here. So I need you to run a weekly report that looks up latest news, look at X, look at Reddit, look at news sources for things that are happening in the AI world, and pull it back here so I can use that to build my opening segment for This Week in AI podcast. And then I'm going to have this run weekly, and it's going to run every week, and we'll do it at 7 a.m. on Monday mornings, okay? If we wanted to see some more options here, we could choose specifically what model we wanted to run here and what folder we wanted to go in, but I think that this is going to work good for now. All right, so we're cruising now. We have our first project set up. We still have multiple agents running for us. We have weekly tasks starting to go here, and we have context that we're building here with our shared memory, okay? Now, these are the instructions that I have. I'm going to take these instructions and show you kind of what I was doing in the earlier segment, but use it to improve these instructions. So help me create global instructions for my podcast This Week in AI that I can use within Claude Cowork to get a better output in a more efficient manner. Here's what I have so far. All right. Now I'm going to get my third agent up and running here. Really cool stuff. All right, it's going to ask me some questions here. So I do a mixture of solo host, interview guest, co-host. So this can be mixed here. What type of it covers? So it's AI news recaps, but I'm also doing guest interviews, deep dives, tool reviews. It's a pick your poison. I do it all here. It's available on all platforms, and there's a newsletter to go with it. That's been around for a couple of years now, and it's active regularly, and I'm going to be launching a third season here. I already have like 70 episodes in, so pretty crazy. So it's going to write this now, and I do have some other things coming back here, but I want to go back to my main project here so you can see the high level view here. Like, this is the orchestrator view. You are a builder. You are orchestrating many agents all within shared context now within Claude projects. This is super cool, right? So I'm going to go back here. So analyze podcast landscape. Let's see what we got here. Look at this shared view coming up here. I don't even need to get into this. This stuff is coming up so quick. It's kind of crazy. So it's showing, hey, Lex Friedman podcast, The Hard Folk, the AI Daily Brief. All right, this is all doing good. I don't really like that it came up in doc format. Look at, here I am. There I am. That's awesome. So that's great. So I'm going to have that. That's going to be saved. But I do want to make sure that in my actual instructions here, that everything comes back in MD files. I'm just not a docx guy. So let's say right here, project instructions. So I can just, let's see what's in it. So it's asking me about this. All right. I can just go show in folder, or I can do it right here. All right, let's see. Project instructions. So about the podcast, what the show covers, where it lives, JJ's voice and tone, what Claude helps with this project. This is quite intense. I'm not sure if this is too long. Let's see what we can do here. I think this might be a little too long. So I'm going to go back into my podcast instructions here, grab this, paste it over, and it is going to take it. All right, well, see how that goes. I'm still experimenting here. This project folder, this project update came out like the last week, so still trying to see exactly how our instructions should be positioned, but I think that's pretty good. One thing I did want to call out is MD files. Let's see, I want to make sure that it specifically brings these back as always return MD files and not docx files. All right, let's just make sure we update that in our instructions. Matter of fact, we don't even really need to really do it that way. We could go there, or we could just go back into instructions and just include that too. So the instructions already specify markdown. All right, so we're good there. That's great. Let's go back to our podcast here. So our competitive landscape is good. Let's see, and it's starting to save this in our folders here. Okay, so competitive landscape, that's good. I'm going to go back in here though, and I'm going to say, please save as MD file. it will be easier for Claude to read it within the project files here. Now I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to see that we have some information here about key things that it started. So this started originally as This Week in No Code. That's true. In September 2023, this has been going. So it has ran quite a number of episodes here, and they're usually 30 to 55 minutes, full range of no-code platforms, moving into AI news. Previous episodes shown in folder. I can pull up the folder here, and look at this. They got a ton of stuff in here. So that's some good context. It's getting up and running here. I think, we can keep workshopping this, and we can start to build out our skills. I think that would be the next place that I'd take this, and I'd go into Claude Cowork right here, and I'd start asking it to build out the skills for me. And so some of the skills that we could think about is like a research podcast skill, which is kind of like the share task, which allows us to do that research, but on command. We could do a show notes skill that allows us to have Claude output very specific show notes for this project. We could have a Claude analyze skill, so we could feed it the transcription of the actual recording and have Claude analyze it, see what we should cut, see how it matches up and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different skills that you can build within this project. Now that you have your shared files, you have your headquarters here, and you're building up that content. So I do want to transition into the next area, which is where we're talking about some of my best tips for using Claude Cowork in projects. All right, my first tip for using projects within Cowork is to make sure that you get all your projects updated with the context it needs right away. And there's actually a really great prompt that I have for this that I'm going to share with you in the descriptions below. But this is specifically important for areas where, like, let's say you took all of these chats and started to create a project out of them. Well, you want to get Claude up to speed with like the actual information about what that workspace is. And so it can create a sub Claude.md file to help you figure out how Claude is going to navigate that file, right? And so for that, what I would do is I'd go into something like this, and I would drop in the prompt here. And I'd say something along the lines of, I just created this project, read every file in the folder, then summarize what you know about this workspace, what's here, what I probably use it for, and what the instructions you'll follow. If anything is unclear, ask me some questions. So by giving it this prompt, it's going to go and look into this workspace and start indexing it and just get this project up to speed faster. So that's tip number one. The next one would be to keep your system instructions short. I know I kept it a little bit long here and I went against my instructions, but I have been having the best input or best output with shorter instructions, just very clear, specific to the point at that top level to make sure that Claude is just getting you what you want. Now, the next tip is making sure that you add a gotcha every single time Claude does something that you don't like. So within the folder here, you see that I have previous examples and successful examples. But what I don't have is the ability to have a gotcha. A gotcha is a negative example. This is where Claude does something that we don't like, and we want to save that, add it to our gotcha folder or gotcha list, so that way Claude can always avoid that. Now, you could add the gotchas within the instructions here, but that might get a little bit long and it might not be scalable. So what I like to do is I like to go back into here, and I would create another folder of, like my gotchas or bad examples, something like that. Bring it over here. And then I would instruct Claude within the system settings here of, hey, whenever I say that this is not good or needs improvement, then to add the example within the gotchas folder. That will mean a negative prompt and will help you get better prompts more consistently. Finally, last thing I want to do is once you get into something like this, you want to have Claude you want to tell Claude to create a Context.md file for you. So it would look like this. Hey Claude, we just set up this new project. Can you please look through all the project files in here and set up a Context.md file that you can use to better navigate this project? It's essentially like a workspace file showing Claude where folders are in the project, where each file is, and just helps you navigate the project better, or helps Claude navigate the project better. So it's a very simple thing, kind of similar to the first one, but a lot of this is just making sure that we're sending just the data we need to Claude to send to Claude and when we need it, rather than, sending it a bunch of messy folders and not having it be able to read it all in an efficient way. All right, here are some things that you should know that Cowork is not that good at yet and hopefully will be improved soon. First, this is all local. You can't share this with your team yet, but once you're able to do that, can you imagine how good this is going to be? But until then, this is all local. All your folders and files are locally on your device. Now, what you could do is you could create all these folders and everything local in your device, and then upload it to a Google Drive or a GitHub and let other people on your team download it and add it as a project on theirs. But they're too disconnected at that point, and unless you're using GitHub to sync the uploads and downloads and updates and whatever, it's not perfect. And for the non-technical crowd, it gets a little bit difficult. So I can't wait for the day that these projects become shared, and you got to imagine they're coming soon. But right now, everything is local. All right. Also, Cowork does eat up a lot of context, which means it eats up a lot of tokens. So use it efficiently. As you see, I've been doing most of this tutorial on Sonnet 4.6, just trying to save my token usage because I use so much of it through Cowork and Claude Code and even chat. And so try to be economical. You don't need to use Opius for like everything. Like that's like a Lamborghini. You don't need to use a Lamborghini to drive and get milk, right? Sonnet is very, very capable. Even a Heyoku is good. So I would navigate between those two things, especially for your day-to-day stuff. And then whenever you need like real brain power, bump it up to Opius. But I'm on the $100 a month plan, and for the most part, I can go unlimited all day, unless I'm really banging it and I'm hitting limits. So do what you can there and stay economical so you can do more here. And again, that goes to building more specific projects, very fine-tuned project, sharing just the context you need to save tokens across the board. One last call out that I'd want to do is with our scheduled notifications here. So within scheduled notifications, you can toggle this on. This means that this will run even if your laptop is closed or sleeping. But without it on, if your laptop isn't open and the desktop app isn't open, then it won't run. So it's not as consistent in that way. So I would say keep this on for your scheduled tasks. That way it does run whenever your app is even closed, but you got to keep the desktop app open as well. So not perfect yet. Again, things that I think will be improved. But look at this. We have a headquarters. This is our project. This is so cool. And it's going to be even better in the coming days. I love being able to have like a project HQ here, being able to see all my active threads, see which needs my contacts or my input, have shared memory between all these conversations. Like this was a big update for Cowork. I hope you see the value. I hope this was helpful in getting projects set up for you in the first time. You could see the value of projects in itself and also see the vision of where Anthropic is going with this, because it is really, really cool. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe. I do a video like this every single week, helping you do more with AI as a non-developer. I'm doing a lot with Anthropic right now because Cowork and Claude Code are so cool, but I also do videos on Codex and other tools in the AI ecosystem. Generally, anything that can help non-technical people do more with AI, I'm there. So share this with your friends, subscribe, and I'll see you next week on 10x Builder. Thanks and peace.